Imagine you are, like, standing on a freezing concrete soundstage in Vancouver.
Wow. Sounds brutal already.
Right. And you have been in pointed shoes for, I don't know, 12 hours at this point.
Yeah, that's just insane.
Your knees are radiating pain. Your spine feels like it's literally vibrating from the impact. And you are functioning on basically just coffee and sheer adrenaline.
Which is, the standard diet on a film set.
Exactly. And the director yells action for the 35th time today. And you have to instantly burst into this joyful, effortless sprint across the floor.
Right, well, perfectly in sync with, 40 other people.
Yes.
Yes.
All to make the person standing in front of you, the main star, look like they are radiating pure, unadulterated magic.
I mean, that's the illusion of the industry, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
And when that movie makes millions of dollars or when it breaks global streaming records, your name is buried deep in the credits. And your industry doesn't even recognize your physical wear and tear as a workplace hazard.
It's honestly a tragedy.
It really is. So, welcome to the Greenlight Report Podcast. Today, we are looking at the people who actually hold the magic together.
Because it is a reality that is almost entirely invisible to you as the consumer. I mean, we see the final product, right? The glossy musical numbers, the vibrant costumes.
Yeah, the fun stuff.
Right. But we rarely interrogate the structural mechanics of how that product is actually manufactured, both strategically, at the corporate level, and physically on the ground.
Which is exactly our mission for this deep dive today. We are unpacking the staggering, just monumental expansion of the Disney Descendants franchise.
It's been a massive year for them.
Oh, huge. We are going to figure out how their recently released fifth film, Descendants, Wicked Wonderland, essentially broke the entire streaming ecosystem.
It really did.
And we're diving into the strategic corporate pivot of their newly greenlit spin-off, Hidden Heroes, a Descendants story.
Which is fascinating all on its own.
Yeah, and then, like you alluded to, we are going behind the camera. We are going to look at the real-life unsung heroes, the choreographers and the dancers who actually manufacture that on-screen magic.
And the really intense labor battle they're fighting just to be recognized.
Exactly. I've been looking through this massive stack of sources today. We've got industry breakdowns, union memos, Reddit threads, and these incredible deep dives from Dance Informa and Hollywood North Buzz. And it is honestly a wild ride.
It really is, because it operates on so many different levels. I mean, if we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to recognize that a franchise running continuously since 2015 is, no longer just a series of kids' movies.
It's something else entirely now.
Right. It is a highly engineered intellectual property machine at this point.
Oh, absolutely.
What we're really examining today is the democratization of fictional royalty, plus the raw economics of franchise fatigue, and the fundamental labor rights of the performers whose bodies are the actual currency of these musicals.
That is so true.
It's just a perfect, fascinating microcosm of the modern entertainment industry right now in 2026.
I really want to get into that concept you just mentioned, the democratization of fictional royalty, because that sounds like a fascinating way to view IP expansion.
It really is.
But I feel like to understand where this franchise is going, we first have to understand the massive shockwave it just sent through the industry.
Right, the release of the fifth movie.
Exactly. Let's look at Descendants. Wicked Wonderland. It drops on Disney Channel on July 16th, 2026, and then hits Disney Plus the very next day. And looking at the data in front of me, I am genuinely having trouble processing these numbers.
They are kind of mind-blowing.
They really are. Walk me through what actually happened that opening weekend, because this does not look like a normal streaming release.
Well, you're right. It wasn't a normal release. It was basically an algorithmic takeover.
An algorithmic takeover.
Yeah. By July 19th, which is, barely 48 hours after it hit the streaming platform, Wicked Wonderland overtook Avatar, Fire and Ash, to become the #1 movie on Disney Plus globally.
Wait, let me just wrap my head around that. James Cameron's Avatar?
Yes, James Cameron's Avatar.
A multi-billion-dollar, VFX-heavy, massive theatrical juggernaut. A movie that was literally designed to be the defining cinematic experience of the decade. And it was unseated by a made-for-screaming musical about the teenage daughters of fairytale characters.
That's exactly what happened.
How does that mathematically even happen? Is the audience for this franchise really that massive? Or is there a different viewing metric at play here?
It's actually a combination of both.
Yeah.
But you were hitting on a really crucial difference in how streaming algorithms measure success versus, the traditional box office.
Right, because box office is just ticket sales.
Exactly. Avatar is an event film. You watch it once, maybe twice, to just absorb the spectacle of it all. But a musical like Wicked Wonderland, it's aimed at a younger, highly engaged demographic. And it is built for extreme repetition.
Oh, that makes sense. They aren't just watching it once.
Not at all. The viewers aren't just watching the movie. They're putting the musical sequences on a continuous loop. They're learning the choreography in their living rooms. They're memorizing every single lyric.
Right.
And that repeat viewing just skyrockets the engagement hours way past what a traditional narrative film can ever achieve.
That makes total sense. It's not just a movie for them. It's like a lifestyle soundtrack.
Exactly.
Which actually perfectly explains the Billboard data we have here. So the soundtrack for Wicked Wonderland hit #1 on the Billboard Kids album chart.
Which is huge.
Yeah, making it the 5th film in the franchise to achieve that. And it debuted at #2 on the Billboard Soundtracks chart with over 50.8 million streams globally.
It's just staggering numbers.
Right. They aren't just watching the screen. They're taking the audio into their bedrooms, into the car, onto their phones.
And that right there is the holy grail of multi-platform IP dominance.
IP dominance. I like that.
Because when you can capture the visual engagement on your own proprietary streaming service and simultaneously dominate the audio streaming market on, like, Spotify and Apple Music, you have created a self-sustaining hype engine.
Wow. Yeah, they feed into each other.
Exactly. Every single time a kid listens to the soundtrack on the way to school, it drives them back to the movie when they get home, and vice versa.
So the mechanics of the release are basically flawless. They nailed it.
Absolutely.
But what about the actual narrative mechanics? Because based on the plot breakdowns I've seen, it seems like the writers took some massive swings with the lore of this universe.
Yeah, it really did. It was a big risk.
Yeah. So the film is directed by Kimmy Gatewood, and it stars Kylie Cantrell as Red, who is the daughter of the Queen of Hearts, and Malia Baker as Chloe Charming, the daughter of Cinderella.
Right, the two leads.
And the entire plot is essentially like a massive cleanup operation for the time travel fallout they caused in the previous film.
Yeah, time travel is historically the most dangerous narrative device a writer can ever introduce into a franchise.
For sure. It always gets messy.
Always. Because the cascading consequences are almost impossible to control narratively.
Right.
So just to recap, in the preceding film, The Rise of Red, these two protagonists went back in time to stop the Queen of Hearts from becoming a tyrant.
Right, and they succeeded, right.
They did. They succeeded. They saved Cinderella, played by Brandy, and they created an entirely new timeline where the Queen of Hearts, played by Rita Ora, is actually a benevolent ruler.
Which sounds great on paper.
Right, it sounds like a total victory. But the problem is the butterfly effect.
Right, because you can't just change a major defining historical event and expect everything else to stay exactly the same.
Exactly.
And this is where the movie gets surprisingly dark for a Disney property, I think. Because by fixing the Queen of Hearts, they completely destroy the life of this other character named Maddox Hatter, played by Leonardo Nam.
Yeah, it was a really interesting twist. So Maddox is the son of the Mad Hatter. In the original timeline, he was totally fine. But in this new, supposedly better timeline, a young Maddox actually witnesses Red and Chloe using the magic time travel pocket watch.
Oh, wow. So he sees them do it.
Right. And he becomes entirely obsessed with it.
Yeah.
That obsession drives him down this really dark, manipulative path, and that ultimately leads to the newly benevolent Queen of Hearts banishing him and his son Max to the Isle of the Lost.
And like anyone who knows this franchise knows that banishing someone to the Isle of the Lost basically guarantees they're going to become a villain. So Red and Chloe's approach to time travel is essentially like, it's like trying to fix a leaky faucet in your house by throwing a stick of dynamite at the plumbing.
Huh. That is a great way to put it.
Like, sure, the faucet isn't dripping anymore, but you just blew up your neighbor's entire living room.
Right.
They saved their own mothers, but they actively created a supervillain in the process. It just feels like a massive moral gray area for the supposed heroes.
The leaky faucet analogy really gets right to the heart of the narrative tension here. What you are describing is actually a massive shift in the core philosophy of the franchise.
How so?
Well, for the first 4 films, the underlying thesis was always that villain kids, the children of Maleficent, Jafar, Cruella, were not inherently evil.
Right. They were just misunderstood.
Exactly. They were simply products of a toxic environment. But Wicked Wonderland complicates that thesis significantly.
Sidekicks.
Right. Maddox Hatter wasn't just a product of a bad environment. He was forced into that environment by the direct, careless actions of the supposed heroes of the story.
Yeah, it forces accountability onto the protagonist in a way you really don't usually see in these kinds of kids' stories. The heroes are the literal reason the villain exists.
It creates a fascinating psychological dynamic. Max, who is Maddox's son, played by Brendan Tremblay, is understandably furious.
I mean, I would be too.
Right. So he creates this magic bracelet that actually turns Chloe, who's usually this absolute paragon of goodness evil, for a significant portion of the film.
Really? She goes evil.
She does. And it is a direct retaliation.
Yeah.
He is forcing the heroes to personally experience the corruption that they inflicted upon his family.
Okay, that sounds incredibly compelling on paper, like a really solid emotional arc.
It is.
But looking at the cast list for this movie, I am struggling to understand how they actually fit all of this into a single film.
Yeah, that's where the problems start.
Because the ripple effects of the time travel didn't just create new villains, it seemingly spawned an entire army of new side characters.
So many characters.
Right. Red now has a younger sister named Pink, played by Liamani Segura.
Mm-hmm.
We have Chessie Cheshire, voiced by Awkwafina.
Yeah.
Plus, this massive roster of legacy kids. We have Louis Madrigal, Hazel Hook, Robbie Hood, Felix Facilier, the Smee twins.
It's a lot to keep track of.
It's insane. And all of this has to build to a climax where Red has to talk the evil Chloe down, convince Max not to change the past again, and throw the time travel watch into a magic well. How does that all fit?
Well, honestly, the sheer volume of characters is precisely where the critical consensus begins to fracture. If you analyze the reviews from industry critics, there is a very stark divide. A huge gap between the appreciation of the film's visual aesthetics and the heavy criticism of its narrative structure.
Okay, let's start with the visuals then, because I know Comic Basics was actually very, very positive about the look of the film.
They were glowing. Comic Basics heavily praised the director, Kimmy Gatewood, for giving Wonderland a distinct rock and roll neon redesign.
Well, that sounds cool.
It really was. Previously, the franchise spent a lot of time in Auradon, which is, very manicured, very traditional fairytale prep school vibes.
Right, lots of bright pastels and perfect lawns.
Exactly. But Gatewood leaned into tilted geometry, hypersaturated neon lighting, and this punk rock aesthetic. It really gave the fifth film a visual identity completely separate from its predecessors.
It gave it some edge.
Yes. It felt visually urgent.
I can totally see how that would pop on a television screen, especially for a younger audience. But, a neon redesign doesn't fix a crowded script.
No, it certainly doesn't.
And looking at the reviews from Poped and Riotis, they did not hold back on the narrative critiques.
Not at all. Riotis in particular zeroed in on what they explicitly called an overstuffed, unmanageable cast.
Yeah, that seems to be the consensus.
When a writer introduces a character like Robbie Hood, the son of Robin Hood, or Felix Facilier, the son of the villain from The Princess and the Frog, the audience inherently expects those characters to have some sort of narrative function.
Exactly. You don't introduce a recognizable name for nothing.
But the critique was that these characters felt purely decorative. They were essentially glorified background extras taking up valuable screen time.
Screen time that should have been used on the main plot.
Right. Time that should have been spent developing the really complex emotional conflict between Red, Chloe, and Max.
It's the absolute curse of the expanding universe.
It really is.
Like, you want to show the audience that the world is big, so you throw in the child of literally every recognizable Disney character, but then you just don't have the runtime to actually give them dialogue or an arc.
So they just end up standing there.
Right. They are just standing there so the studio can sell an action figure later. Exactly. And Riotis also brought up a really sharp critique about the casting diversity, didn't they?
They did. And it is a significant observation for a franchise that has historically built its brand on really diverse ensemble casts.
What did they point out?
Riotis pointed out that aside from Brandy, who obviously has a legacy role as Cinderella, there was a conspicuous lack of dark-skinned characters in the principal action-driving cast.
Which is a glaring oversight when you are marketing to a global audience in 2026.
It definitely sparked some conversations online.
I bet. So you have a movie that is breaking global streaming records, right? Making absolute mountains of cash. But critically, it is collapsing under its own weight.
That's a good summary.
The narrative is just too bloated, the character roster is totally unmanageable, and the core emotional beats are being drowned out by, like, decorative cameos.
Which brings us perfectly to the strategic corporate pivot.
Let's talk about the pivot.
Disney is actually acutely aware of these structural flaws. They know that if they try to make a sixth movie using this exact same formula, cramming even more children of primary heroes and villains into a single narrative, the franchise will just buckle.
It would explode.
The audience will experience complete franchise fatigue.
And that explains the absolute left turn they took with the announcement on August 7th.
Yes, the new project.
They officially greenlit a spin-off project called Hidden Heroes, a Descendants story, which I guess had been operating under the working title Extra Credit.
Right.
It's heading into production in Vancouver for both Disney Channel and Disney+. And the premise of this entirely abandons the royalty tier of characters.
This is where we get into the concept of the democratization of Disney royalty that we mentioned earlier.
Yes, explain this to me.
So, Io Davis, the president of Disney Kids and Family, released a statement explicitly stating that the goal of this new project is to put Sidekicks center stage.
Sidekicks.
Yes. The narrative revolves around a secret training facility called Sidekick Academy, which is canonically hidden in the center of every fairy tale realm.
I have to admit, as a concept, that is incredibly clever.
It's very smart.
It opens up an entirely different facet of the universe. The premise is that a villainous duo attacks this academy, and because it is hidden and completely cut off from the main heroes, these sidekick recruits have to step up. They have to save the realm completely on their own. They cannot rely on their famous parents. They cannot call in the Cinderellas or the Maleficents. It's just them.
Let's examine why this is such a masterful maneuver from a corporate strategy standpoint.
Okay.
Disney possesses the largest, most recognizable intellectual property library in the world.
Easily.
But for decades, they have relied almost exclusively on the alpha personalities of that library, the primary protagonists and the primary antagonists.
Right. You can only tell so many stories about the future king of Auradon before the audience gets bored.
Exactly.
There is like a mathematical limit to how many times you can recycle the generational trauma of Snow White or the Evil Queen.
Precisely. That is the definition of franchise fatigue. You hit a ceiling where the stakes literally can't get any higher, and the character dynamics become deeply, deeply repetitive.
Yeah.
But by pivoting to the sidekicks, Disney is executing a massive lateral expansion of their IP. Yes, they are tapping into a fresh, completely unexplored category of characters. These are characters the audience already has built-in nostalgia for.
Because everyone loves the genie.
Exactly. Everyone loves the genie, everyone loves Lumiere, but their children offer a complete blank narrative slate.
Oh, that's so true. We have no expectations for the genie's kid.
Right. It maintains the continuity of the Descendants universe, keeping the brand alive and profitable while completely refreshing the emotional stakes.
I look at this Sidekick Academy concept like it's a vocational trade school for the fairy tale world.
Ooh, I like that comparison.
If you think about it, the princes and princesses are basically off at a prestigious liberal arts college. They are learning how to dramatically stare out of castle windows, how to sing with woodland creatures, how to deliver a sweeping monologue.
All the dramatic arts.
Exactly. But the sidekicks, they are at a trade school learning how to actually keep the kingdom's infrastructure running.
Yes, the practical skills.
They're learning crisis management, magical logistics, how to pack the hero's enchanted luggage while simultaneously providing witty banter to cut the tension.
That trade school analogy is a highly effective way to frame the narrative shift here. The heroes are the figureheads. The sidekicks are the infrastructure. When you focus a story on the infrastructure, it inherently changes the genre of the storytelling.
How so?
A story about Malmarks is usually about power, destiny, and heavy burdens. But a story about the people working in the background, that is naturally about teamwork, feeling undervalued, and the struggle to step out of the shadows.
Wow. Yeah.
It is a much more relatable blue-collar approach to a fairy tale.
Which automatically makes it more grounded for the audience watching at home. Because, let's be honest, most kids watching don't feel like they are the future king or queen of the world.
No, definitely not.
They feel like the sidekick in their own life, just trying to figure things out.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about the actual faces of this new generation. Because the fandom response to this cast announcement has been explosive.
It has been very loud online. But before we analyze the cast, we really should look at the creative leadership. because it signals the exact tone Disney's aiming for.
Okay, who's in charge?
Jude Wang is directing Hidden Heroes.
Okay, that is a very specific, very intentional choice.
It is. Jude Wang has a very strong directorial pedigree when it comes to balancing ensemble comedy with youthful adventure.
Mm-hmm.
She directed episodes of Only Murders in the Building, which is just a masterclass in juggling eccentric characters.
Oh, I love that show.
And she directed the film Finding Ohana, which deals heavily with young people discovering their heritage through a highly kinetic action-adventure lens.
Well, she is going to need every ounce of that ensemble experience because this cast list is absolutely stacked.
On that stuff.
We have Dior Goodjohn, who people will definitely recognize from the Percy Jackson series. Mm-hmm. She is stepping in to play Jenny, the daughter of the genie from Aladdin.
Now, that is fascinating. A character whose parent is literally defined by limitless magical power, but who is entirely subservient to whoever held the lamp.
Oh, wow.
That immediately sets up a fascinating internal conflict for the daughter. Does she have power? Is she free?
Exactly. That's a great setup. And then we have Momona Tamada from the Babysitters Club playing Zara, and this one is wild to me. Zara is the daughter of Yzma from The Emperor's New Groove.
Yzma is arguably one of the most eccentric comedic villains in the entire Disney canon.
She is iconic.
Adapting that specific chaotic energy into a modern teenager is a huge acting challenge.
And it gets better, because right next to her, we have Jacob Rodriguez playing Kronk Jr.,
Yes.
the son of Kronk. So you have the villain's kid and the henchman's kid in the exact same academy.
That dynamic is going to be so much fun to watch.
It really is. And rounding out the rest, we have Eva Fossasika Smedley as Mary, the daughter of Merryweather from Sleeping Beauty.
Mm-hmm.
Harry Jones is playing Lou, the son of Lumiere from Beauty and the Beast.
A great pull.
And then perhaps the most interesting casting choice, purely from a production standpoint, the Beauty and the Beast universe is expanding with the Potts siblings.
Yes, the teacups.
Right? We have Race Dawkins, and then real-life siblings Connor Wong playing Scratch Potts and Kyra Wong playing Nick Potts.
Casting real-life siblings to play on-screen siblings in an ensemble this large is a very, very smart production strategy.
Why is that? Just easier casting?
No, it instantly provides a baseline of authentic, lived-in chemistry that would otherwise take weeks of rehearsal to manufacture.
Oh,
They already know how to talk over each other. They know how to annoy each other, how to physically occupy the same space naturally.
It instantly grounds the magical elements in reality. They actually feel like family.
Exactly.
So that is the roster. And when this dropped, the Our Descendants subreddit basically went into a complete meltdown of speculation.
The real-time audience engagement on platforms like Reddit is actually a crucial metric for studios to gauge whether their IP pivot is landing.
Right.
And the immediate reaction to Hidden Heroes highlighted exactly what fans were fatigued by in the previous films.
Yeah, one of the biggest points of celebration was actually the costume design.
It was a huge talking point.
The highest of voted comments were just fans expressing sheer relief that the characters are finally stepping away from the monochrome aesthetic.
Well, in the original Descendants films, the visual language was incredibly rigid.
It really was.
Mal, the daughter of Maleficent, was always draped in varying shades of purple. Evie, the daughter of the evil queen, was strictly coated in blue. Carlos was black, white, and red.
Everyone had a team color.
Yes, it was a very aggressive color coding system designed to make the characters instantly identifiable, almost like branding a toy line.
But after 5 movies, having characters who refuse to wear literally anything other than their designated Pantone color starts to feel less like a stylistic choice and more like a cartoonish constraint.
It becomes very limiting.
Yeah. When fans saw the leaked production photos for Hidden Heroes, they noticed that the Sidekick kids are actually wearing diverse, layered color palettes.
Which is a breath of fresh air.
It suggests that the director, Jude Wang, is letting this universe finally breathe visually. The characters look like actual teenagers expressing themselves rather than action figures trapped in a specific brand identity.
Although I will point out the fandom did notice one very specific color choice in those leaks.
The purple hair.
Yes. Momona Tamada, playing Zara, the daughter of Yzma, was photographed with bright, vibrant purple hair.
The internet loved that. One user immediately joked, Mal wants her purple wig back. Because, like you said, purple has been the defining color of the franchise's main protagonist for almost a decade.
Mm-hmm.
But that purple hair actually sparked the most intense, fascinating narrative theory I've seen about this movie.
You're talking about the Reddit theory regarding Zara and Kronk Jr.
Yes. Walk me through the mechanics of this theory, because if this is true, it completely subverts how Disney usually handles the concept of legacy villains.
It really does. So the theory revolves around the inherent power dynamics of their parents.
Okay.
In The Emperor's New Groove, Yzma is the mastermind villain, and Kronk is her loyal, albeit dim-witted, sidekick.
Right.
Now, we have their children, Zara and Kronk Jr., attending Sidekick Academy together. But fans are speculating that because Zara is technically the child of a primary villain, she doesn't actually belong in Sidekick Academy at all.
Wait, so what is she doing there?
The theory posits that Zara is actually the main villain of the film, hiding in plain sight.
Which would create a devastating emotional conflict.
Exactly. If Zara is the villain, it creates a deeply resonant psychological dilemma for Kronk Jr.
Because they're friends.
Right, these two kids presumably grew up together. But if Zara turns evil, Kronk Jr. has to make a choice. Does he blindly follow the villain like his father did, repeating a generational cycle of toxic loyalty?
Oh, wow.
Or does he break the cycle, step out of his father's shadow, and actually fight his childhood best friend to save the academy?
That is so much darker and more emotionally complex than just good guy punches bad guy.
He really is.
It's about breaking generational trauma. It's about realizing that just because your parents had a specific dynamic, you don't have to repeat it. That is phenomenal writing if it turns out to be true.
And it speaks to a much more sophisticated audience. Gen Z and Gen Alpha audiences are highly fluent in tropes, and they actively look for narratives that deconstruct those tropes.
But there is another theory floating around that has less to do with the narrative and more to do with Disney's corporate endgame.
Right, the television theory.
Yeah. A lot of users are speculating that this entire movie is actually just a backdoor pilot.
A backdoor pilot is a very specific, highly calculated television strategy.
Can you explain how that actually functions financially? Because it sounds like a massive risk to build a whole movie just to test the waters for a TV show.
It is actually the exact opposite. It is the ultimate risk mitigation tool for a studio.
Oh, so?
Producing a brand new television series from scratch is incredibly expensive. You have to build permanent sets, hire a massive crew, and commit to months of production without knowing if the audience will even watch the first episode.
Right. It's a huge gamble.
A backdoor pilot bypasses that risk entirely. You take an existing, successful property, in this case, the Descendants film franchise, and you produce a standard 90-minute movie.
Okay.
But within that movie, you introduce a completely new cast of characters in a completely new setting.
Sidekick Academy.
Exactly. You use the marketing power of the established brand to get the audience to tune in. If the movie bombs, you just write it off as a single contained film. No harm done. But if the audience falls in love with the new characters, if they love the genie's daughter and Kronk's son, you already have the sets built, the costumes designed, and the cast under contract.
That's brilliant.
You simply greenlight a multi-season television series using that exact foundation. It is a financially insulated way of launching a new TV show on the back of a proven movie franchise.
Which makes perfect sense for the Disney Channel and Disney Plus ecosystem.
Yeah.
They need episodic content to keep people subscribed month after month.
They absolutely do.
But, I have to push back on one thing here.
Go for it.
We spent the entire first half of this deep dive criticizing Wicked Wonderland for having an absolutely unmanageable, bloated cast that ruined the narrative flow.
It did.
Are they not making the exact same mistake here? I mean, look at this roster.
There is a large cast.
They are introducing the Genie's kid, Yzma's kid, Kronk's kid, Merryweather's kid, Lumiere's kid, and 3 separate kids for Mrs. Potts. That is an 8-person core ensemble in a 90-minute movie. How does that not instantly collapse into the same chaotic mess we just talked about?
It is a completely valid concern, and it raises a fundamental question about the mechanics of ensemble storytelling.
Right.
But the difference lies in the psychological makeup of the characters being portrayed.
How so? Like, what's the difference?
Think about the characters in Wicked Wonderland. You are dealing with the children of royalty and primary villains. You have future queens, future kings, and megalomaniacal tyrants.
Right.
By their very nature, these are alpha personalities. They are characters who have been raised to believe they are the absolute center of the universe.
Main character syndrome.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When you put 8 alpha personalities in a single movie, they are all violently competing for narrative dominance. Everyone wants to give the dramatic monologue. Everyone wants to deliver the final blow.
Yeah, that makes
The
sense.
story fractures because the characters fundamentally refuse to share the spotlight.
They are essentially fighting each other for screen time?
Precisely. But sidekicks are psychologically entirely different. A sidekick is, by definition, a supportive entity.
Oh,
Their entire existence in fairy tale lore is based on collaboration, logistics, and supporting a greater cause.
that is such a good point.
A story about Sidekick Academy is inherently a story about teamwork. These characters don't have to clash for the spotlight because they don't even want the spotlight.
Right, they just want to get the job done.
Exactly. Their narrative arc is about learning how their unique, individual skills can combine to solve a problem. Therefore, an ensemble of 8 sidekick kids will naturally function much smoother narratively than an ensemble of 8 future monarchs.
Wow. I never thought about it like that. They aren't trying to outshine each other. They are structurally built to support each other.
Exactly.
Which is incredibly poetic when you think about it.
It really is.
We are analyzing a multi-million-dollar movie entirely dedicated to sidekicks. These characters who quietly rely on their own skills behind the scenes to make the heroes look good. And the irony is, this movie is entirely reliant on the real-world cinematic sidekicks who actually make these musicals function. The dancers and the choreographers.
The transition from the fictional concept of a Sidekick Academy to the very real, very grounded labor dynamics of the British Columbia film industry is seamless here.
Because it's the exact same struggle. And this is where the story gets really compelling for me.
It's a huge issue.
We have this deep dive from Dance Informa magazine, which shifts the focus completely away from the actors and the executives and puts the spotlight firmly on the people running the choreography for Hidden Heroes.
Right. The choreography for this new film is being helmed by Louise Ratsky and Jeffrey Mortensen.
Okay, tell me about them.
It is important to understand their pedigree because their level of success directly informs their ability to advocate for others. They are not newcomers by any means.
Right.
They previously won a Leo Award and secured an Emmy nomination for their collaborative work on Grease, Rise of the Pink Ladies.
Let's break down their backgrounds, because this isn't just about putting together dance routines. It is about systemic industry change.
Absolutely.
Jeffrey Mortensen is renowned for his highly narrative-driven choreography. He understands how to use movement to tell a story, which is why he was brought in for projects like Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist, the earlier Descendants films, and the Zombies franchise. But arguably his most important role is off-screen. He serves as a co-chair on the dance committee for UBC Pectray.
For context, UBCP Pectray is the autonomous branch of ACTRA in British Columbia.
Right, the union.
Yes, it is the labor union representing performers in the film, television, and radio industries. Mortensen, sitting on that committee, means he is directly involved in negotiating the legal framework of how dancers are treated on set.
And his partner, Louise Schradsky, brings an entirely different but equally intense perspective.
She has a fascinating background.
She is a former Cirque du Soleil performer. She actually played the Green Lizard in Mystere, which is Cirque's longest-running show in Las Vegas.
Which is just incredible.
That level of performance requires an incomprehensible amount of physical discipline and bodily risk. The article notes that after 15 years of grinding in the industry, she decided to step up into a leadership role to change how things operate.
And they're joined by a third advocate, Kane Nelson. His trajectory is also fascinating.
Well, yeah, I read about him.
He started dancing at age 4 in Alberta, built a career, but then in 2022, he transitioned into becoming a certified Steadicam operator.
Which is a brilliant career move.
It really is.
Because a Steadicam operator has to wear this massive, heavy harness with a camera attached to it and physically move through the set to get those smooth, continuous tracking shots.
Right.
Having a former dancer operate the Steadicam during a musical number means the camera operator instinctively understands rhythm, momentum, and where the dancer's body is going to be in space before they even move.
Exactly.
It must make the footage look incredibly kinetic.
It completely bridges the gap between the performer and the lens. And that bridge is exactly what these 3 professionals are trying to build with their side project.
Oh, the intensive, right?
Yes. Together, Horadsky, Mortensen, and Nelson run something called the Dance on Camera, multi-day intensive.
What exactly does an intensive like that teach? Because I assume if you're a professional dancer, you already know how to dance.
Well, you know how to dance for a proscenium stage, where the audience is 50 feet away and totally static.
Right.
Dancing for a camera lens is an entirely different technical discipline. The intensive teaches practical on-set etiquette, spatial awareness regarding heavy camera equipment, and how to modulate your physical performance depending on whether the camera is doing a wide shot or an extreme close-up.
That makes a lot of sense.
They are essentially teaching dancers how to survive and thrive in a highly industrialized film environment.
Because that environment is historically hostile to them. The labor advocacy discussed in this Dance Informa piece is genuinely enraging when you read the details.
It is very upsetting.
In late 2020, UBCP-ACTRA finally formed a dedicated dance committee to negotiate the BCMPA.
BC Master Production Agreement.
Exactly. This is the overarching contract that establishes safety protocols and minimum pay rates across the province, and it only gets renegotiated every 3 years.
Which is a very tight window.
So if you miss your window, you are stuck with bad conditions for years.
And the conditions they're fighting against are not just bureaucratic. They are deeply psychological and cultural.
Yes.
Louise Ratsky points out a systemic issue that she calls the infantizing of dancers by film productions.
Yes, I read that part, and it blew my mind. Explain how this infantization actually happens on a set.
It stems from the visual nature of the art form itself. Dance, especially in pop musicals or Disney films, has an inherent youthfulness and exuberance and a visual joy to it.
Right. They're smiling, they're leaping around.
Precisely. Because it looks effortless and fun on the surface, directors and producers subconsciously begin to treat the physical labor of dance as play instead of work.
Which is a catastrophic misunderstanding of the athleticism required.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that dismissive attitude leads directly to dangerous working conditions.
Like what?
Well, a director, trying to get the perfect shot, might ask an ensemble of dancers to sprint, leap, and execute highly demanding, joint-crushing choreography 30 times in a row, with almost no breaks.
Oh my God.
They wouldn't ask an actor to sprint full speed for an hour straight without a rest. But because the dancers are smiling and the music is playing, the production assumes they're just having fun.
It's infuriating. They are weaponizing the dancer's professionalism against them.
That is exactly what is happening.
A dancer is trained to smile through the pain, so the director assumes there is no pain.
Right.
To combat this deeply ingrained culture, the dance committee actually looked at another highly physical department for a structural model. They modeled their negotiation tactics after the stunt committee.
Which is a very strategic comparison. Stunt performers execute high-impact, immediate risks, falling off a building, crashing a car.
And they get paid for that risk.
They receive hazard pay for those specific actions. Dancers, on the other hand, endured massive cumulative wear and tear injuries. Over the course of a film shoot, the repetitive impact on concrete sound stages destroys their knees, their ankles, their lower backs.
The article mentions they require constant physiotherapy, massage therapy, and chiropractic care just to maintain their bodies so they can show up for work the next day.
It's a massive physical toll.
The dance committee argued that this physiological toll is just as damaging as a stunt fall, and it must be legally reflected in standardized, higher base rates and hazard-adjacent pay.
Absolutely.
They aren't just paying for the performance, they are paying for the physical degradation of the performer's body.
Furthermore, the union negotiations pushed for a critical change in hierarchy. They advocated for the choreographer to be officially recognized and contractually respected as a head of department.
Why is that specific title so important? Does it just mean a better parking spot?
No. It means authority and budgetary power.
Oh, okay.
In film production, a head of department has the legal authority to halt production if conditions are unsafe for their crew.
Oh, wow. That's huge.
If a choreographer is just considered a consultant, they have no power. But if they are a head of department, and a director asks a dancer to perform complex pirouettes in pointe shoes on a slippery, highly polished soundstage floor,
which sounds like a nightmare.
It is. The choreographer now has the authority to step in and say, no, this is an extreme safety hazard. We are holding production until the art department fixes the floor texture, or we are changing the footwear.
Wow.
It is about having a seat at the table where the safety logistics are actually decided.
It is about giving the sidekicks the power to protect themselves.
Exactly.
And this connects so perfectly to our central theme. The dancers are the literal breathing hidden heroes of these massive corporate musicals.
They really are.
They provide the kinetic energy, the massive visual scale, the pulse that makes the audience want to stream the soundtrack 50 million times. Without the ensemble dancers, the lead actor is just standing in an empty room, awkwardly lip-syncing to a backing track.
It would look ridiculous.
It would. The dancers manufacture the illusion of magic. It is profoundly fitting that these advocates, Ratsky and Mortensen, who are actively fighting against a massive corporate machine for the rights and recognition of background performers, are the exact same people hired to choreograph a movie about sidekicks finally stepping into the light and realizing their own worth.
It is a perfect thematic synergy.
Yeah.
And we cannot view this labor movement in a vacuum either.
Right.
If we synthesize what is happening in Vancouver with the broader geopolitical landscape of the entertainment industry, a really clear pattern emerges.
You're talking about the strikes.
Yes, we recently witnessed the massive SAG-AFTRA and WGA strikes that completely shut down and reshaped Hollywood.
Yeah, that was huge.
That was fundamentally a global push for the recognition of undervalued labor in the face of shifting distribution models like streaming.
Right, because the studios were making billions off streaming, while the writers and background actors literally couldn't afford rent.
Exactly. And in the United States, we recently saw the historic formation of the Choreographers Guild, which for the first time allows film and television choreographers to formally unionize and collectively bargain.
That's amazing.
What we are seeing with Canadian dancers
Yeah.
through UBCP ACTRA is a fight to maintain that exact same level of global competitiveness, ensuring that dancers are protected, paid equitably, and treated as vital infrastructure is the only way cities like Vancouver and Toronto will remain top-tier destination hubs for global musical productions.
Makes sense.
Because you don't protect the talent leaves, and the entire industry collapses.
It all fundamentally comes down to recognizing value.
Absolutely.
Whether it is Disney's corporate executives finally recognizing that their multi-billion-dollar franchise needs to elevate the sidekicks to prevent audience fatigue, or the film industry finally recognizing that they need to financially compensate the dancers for destroying their joints on a concrete floor.
Right.
The system only survives if you value the people holding the infrastructure together.
That is exactly the point. And I think that leaves us with a highly potent, perhaps slightly uncomfortable final thought to mull over.
Lay it on me.
Human nature dictates that we naturally idolize the heroes. We idolize the Cinderellas, the main pop stars, the lead actors whose names are printed in massive font on the movie poster.
Of course we do.
But if we internalize the premise of Sidekick Academy, or if we truly look at the grueling, real-world efforts of the UBCP ACTRA Dance Committee, it forces us to interrogate our own perceptions. How much of the magic that we effortlessly consume on a daily basis is actually built entirely on the unseen, underappreciated labor of invisible sidekicks?
Wow.
The next time you watch a movie, honestly, the next time you look around the infrastructure of your own workplace or your own community, ask yourself, who are the sidekicks working in the background to make the heroes look good? And more importantly, are they getting the credit and the protection they actually deserve?
Wow. That is a brilliant note to end on. It genuinely makes you reevaluate the hidden infrastructure of our daily lives, and it definitely makes me want to read the end credits of a movie a lot more closely from now on.
I know I will be.
Speaking of Sidekick Academy, I have a question for you. Yes, you listening to this deep dive right now, we want to hear your thoughts in the comments.
Please chime in.
If you were forced to attend Sidekick Academy, which classic Disney sidekick would you want as your parent, and why?
That is a tough choice.
I think I would have to pick the genie from Aladdin, just for the sheer limitless chaos of it, though having Kronk making spinach puffs every morning is a very, very close second.
The spinach puffs would be a huge cook.
Right. Let us know your pick in the comments below.
I am genuinely looking forward to analyzing those choices. It reveals a lot about how people view their own support roles.
It really does. And hey, for those of you watching us on video right now, please take a second to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel.
It really helps.
It ensures that you never miss a video. But beyond that, as we talked about today, everything is driven by mechanics. Liking the video tells the YouTube algorithm that people actually value this kind of deep analytical content, which forces the system to push it out to more curious minds just like you.
And we want to build the largest community of curious minds possible.
Absolutely. And for those of you listening to the audio version on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or whatever your favorite platform is, make sure to hit that follow button.
Please do.
It ensures you never miss a deep dive into the sources. And just like with the video side, it teaches the platform's algorithm to share our deep dives with a wider audience.
Thank you for joining us on this exploration today.
Always a pleasure. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's Greenlight Report podcast. We will see you next time.